Hello and welcome. Lauren Grace here. Thank you so much for being with me today. So it's been a minute since I've gone live over here on Facebook, and I thought I'm actually live on Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook. And I thought I would start off with a card of the day before we get things rocking. So welcome to the show. This is the Afterlight Podcast with a live show today. And today on the show, I'm going to be talking about mastering your mindset and manifesting your dream life. And I'm also going to be taking your questions. So if you've got any questions on business and spirituality, I would love to answer them right here live on the call. Just go ahead and leave them in the comments. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start with the card of the day. So wherever you are in space and in time, this card is going to be for you. So just take a moment and arrive. Just a couple of breaths. And what I'd love for you to do is I'd love for you to just think of your question or just be open to guidance from source. Okay. Sometimes what we do is we want an answer to something, but really if we can kind of get out of our own way and we can just arrive in the now moment, we could just be open to what the universe has to teach us and has to show us. And that's when the real magic is going to happen, because we're available for guidance outside of our restrictive mindset. All right, so I'll go ahead and pull a card now. And this is from the Enchanted Map Oracle from Colette Baron Reed. I love this deck. I use this deck a lot of the times if I'm working with someone who's maybe on a journey or looking for a change or transition. I just felt really called to use this deck for you today. So let's see where we're at. And the card is Spark. And this is a beautiful card. This card here is card number 34. 3 plus 4 is a 7. And 7 is the 7th chakra. The crown chakra was associated with the color purple. And it's a very high frequency color, purple, by the way. You can use purple to really transcend a lot of things, to transmute energy, for healing. But anyway, purple's a different conversation. So this card is a lot about connecting to purpose, and it's also about taking purposeful actions. So what we see here in this card is we see this woman and she's playing the violin and she's really in flow. She's leaning down and she's really allowing the music to come out of her violin and also out of her heart. What's flowing from the violin is we see almost like these little droplets of energy that are turning into hearts and that are being crystallized into love. And one of the things that I love about this card is the movement in this card. Also, when you look closer, there's a little butterfly that's sort of hidden in the flowers at her feet, which is all about transformation. We see the purple flowers there, which is a lot about connection to purpose, connection to higher self. And when I see that at her feet, it's a lot about remembering to be grounded as you take action. It's a lot about being here in the now. I work with this 15-year-old on I just have a small job that I do on the side. And she was telling me about how the kids these days are saying, touch some grass in terms of, I guess, take a minute or chill out or something like that. Let me know in the comments if I've got this wrong. But I said, wait a minute, did you just say touch some grass? And she said, yeah, like calm down. And I thought, how interesting that those of us in spiritual businesses and in the spiritual world, that we talk a lot about grounding, right? And I just like that touching some grass is becoming a little bit of a hip thing to say. Anyway, so that being said, this is reminding you to touch some grass, is to be here in the now moment, to really ground yourself and to be now. And one of the things that I love about this card is the movement in it, the peace in it, the joy in it, the spark of purpose, the spark of creativity, and that she's just like not censoring herself. She's just playing to hear the music that's within her. And so this card is a gentle reminder to allow you to remember that you are safe to share the music that's within you. And I was listening to Wayne Dyer the other day and one of his 10 spiritual laws talks or something like that. And he was talking about a quote that he'd heard around, you don't want to die with the music in you. And you may not be a musician, you may not be somebody who wants to communicate or be creative in that way, but it's about finding what's going to work for you. So what will work for you, in fact? What is going to show you the best way of, showing up for yourself? What is going to allow you to be creative and open up and show your heart? So that's what this card is about. Okay. So what I would love to do now is I'd love to really get into the idea of talking about mastering your dream life and starting with your mindset. And I'll also probably pull a card at the end of the day or at the end of this live as well, or I'll do a little bit of bibliomancy. One of the things will happen. So one of the things that I want to talk about, and I want to say hello, hi to Debbie as well over on Instagram who's watching, is the fact that we sometimes forget that we are so powerful beyond measure and that we truly are running the show. Like, sorry, we work with source energy and we're co-creating, but we have free will, right? So we're really running the show of our own reality in that way. And so one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about today are 5 different tips that I thought that you could use to assist you in manifesting your dream life. And I'm going to go over these tips. And the reason why I wanted to talk to you about them in depth is because there is such a thing as looking at tips and going, okay, so what are they? But then you really have to look at how are you going to integrate this in your life? How is it going to work for you in your life? And I think that a lot of us are forgetting our power and we're forgetting that we have to be responsible for the kind of life that we want to live. And what we do is we sometimes point outside of ourselves, or we think it should belong to somebody else, or we think it's someone else's fault that these things aren't working for us. And we have to remember to point that finger back at ourselves and to take that ownership and to take that power back. And so in a podcast episode on the Afterlight, that's actually, depending on when you're listening to this, is going to go out in the afternoon on September 10th. I'm talking about how to clear and cleanse your energy and different ways of removing negative thoughts, because a big part of what I see people doing is they're forgetting their power, and they're also forgetting that they could be carrying the burdens and the ideas and anxieties of other people. And it's important to shift that off. Okay. And I will say as well that I have an amazing challenge called Master Your Mindset. It's a 21-day challenge. Every day, get an audio download from me with exercises that you do in your full color workbook. And you just go through an entire 21-day program of helping you to master your mindset. And it's only $37. I made it at that price point because I wanted, no matter where you were in your life, to be able to access this gold. And the transformations that people are getting are incredible. And I'd love to hear about how it works for you. Okay, so let's get to it now. Let's talk about mastering your mindset and manifesting your dream life. And I originally wrote these 5 tips down because I was at an event that I was a guest speaker at for women in business. And so there were all these amazing women in business, and we had different presenters, and the different presenters were speaking on different subjects, and mine was master your mindset and manifest your dream life. And I was really thinking long and hard about how do I solidify something so big like that into 5 actionable tips, into 5 different ideas that people are actually going to be able to walk away from and feel like they've accomplished and learned something. And so today, what I like about being able to hang out with you is that I can flush the ideas out a little bit more if it feels natural at this moment, or you could just take away the tip itself and you can run it through your own filter and see how it's going to sit and resonate with you. And I honestly believe that if we do these 5 steps, that we're going to be so far along in being able to manifest the life that we desire, that if we just implement them, we won't recognize ourselves in 6 months or even 1 month. So tip number 1 is coming back to the now. And this is the thing. We hear a lot of spiritual people, especially banging on about the idea of being here in the now moment. And, now is the only point of power that you have, but it's actually true. It's legitimate, right? Because tomorrow never comes and the past is not here. And so the only thing that we have right now is the now. But what we do is we have so many thoughts going on. We have so many distractions that are happening to us that we forget to take those moments to be in the moment now. We think that there must be some far-reaching goal that we have to achieve in order to be happy, or that something's got to shift in order for us to feel good, or something has to be resolved from the past in order for us to forgive ourselves and move forward, or other people move forward. And the fact of the matter is that we can really just block all that out or breathe it through, however you want to deal with it, and then arrive in the now moment and then be here. And when we're here in the moment, it's our moment of power. And what happens is when we're in the moment now, is we just drop into a live and we hear the exact thing that we needed to. Or we listen to a podcast and we hear the exact message that we needed to. Or we see a butterfly going by and we know it's a message from our loved one. Or we see a fox on the side of the road and we know that that's our power animal. It's a reminder of us to be, maybe connecting a little bit more with animal nature, animal energy, reaching out to our guides, things like that. I mean, really, the list goes on and on and on. When we are in the now moment, we can learn to master our mindset. And when we can master our mindset, we can manifest the life that we desire. But because we're so often fixated and focused on the future, or obsessing and worried about the future, or we're, sad and feeling shame and guilt and whatever about the past, we miss what's happening right now here in the moment. And so one of the things that you can do to arrive in the moment now is to actually just be in your space. So look around. Let's just do it together. And if you're driving, please don't do this. You could do it after, but depending on where you are, let's just try this together. I want you to look forward, notice what's in front of you. And I want you to look to the right and the left and behind you to the right and behind you to the left and above you and below. Welcome. You've arrived in the moment. It's that easy. When we are here now, then we can go, okay, I can notice my thoughts. I'm going to choose something different. Or I notice the red light over there. I'm going to go right at this green light over here. I mean, all of these things start to happen. It's almost like I hear that. Like my guides are saying, the universe conspires to work with you when you're in the moment. The Alchemist, that book talks a lot about these sort of things when, you're really where you're meant to be, that the universe really conspires to help make everything happen for you. But the challenge is that if we're not actually in the moment, then we're missing all of those signs, the nuggets of the little golden nuggets that are being left for us. We're missing all that. So that's why one of the ways of manifesting your dream life is to be in the now. Now, one thing I want to say as well is that, and Eckhart Tolle talks a lot about this in his work, is he says that if you feel sad, if you feel down, those are very often because you have lots of thoughts of the past. If you feel anxiety and worry, it's a lot of thoughts of the future. Okay. And so when you're noticing these emotions that are happening, you can sometimes go, oh, wait a minute. Okay, I can see that I'm getting really worked up about a future thing that probably will never happen, or a past thing that I can't control because it's already done. Might not even be remembering it accurately as well. What problem do I have in this moment? And sometimes I can hear, your mind might be going, oh, Lauren, I've got to pay the bills and I don't know when when my next salary is going to come in, or I've got this going on or this job. It's like, no, those are stories we're telling ourselves. But what problem do you have in this moment right now, right here, right now, wherever you are? And when we can come back to the moment, then we go, whoa, everything is actually cool right now. So fear takes us out of the now. Worry takes us out of the now. Our thoughts take us out of the now. So in order to master your mindset and manifest your dream life, you want to invite in moments of stillness like we just did. You want to look to the right, the left, the up, the down. You want to do that, or you want to come back and have a conscious breath. Whatever it is you want to do, you want to go, okay, I'm going to take a conscious moment every time I remember to do it, to just be here in the now and arrive in the now moment. And then that will start to shift and create major changes for you. Number 2, in order to master your mind, set and manifest your dream life, you need to replace your negative thoughts. So I've just said that I've got this awesome episode going out on the Afterlight Podcast later this afternoon, depending on when you're listening to this. And I've got 2 new techniques in there that I'm going to share with you. And so I really want to encourage you to check that out. But one of the things that I want to remind you is that the average person thinks between 60,000 and 80,000 thoughts a day. And if we're thinking those many thoughts and those thoughts are not negative, or they're not supportive and they're negative, that is a lot, right? imagine that your thought is water and there's 60,000, 80,000 liters of water and you're just drinking it all in every day. And those thoughts are negative, right? They're like telling you that you suck, you're a failure, you're not good enough, whatever the case may be. We all have different stories that are running through our minds. When we can understand that those thoughts are just very often their old habits, their old programming, their old ways of looking at the world, there are things that we were taught that are no longer true and are not true for us. And we can change those thoughts. We can replace those negative thoughts with positive thoughts. Then we start to go, oh, whoa, what? You mean I don't have to sit here and tell myself I'm not good enough? I can actually choose to go, oh, I'm going to choose a different thought, which is that I am good enough or I'm learning every day. Yes, that is exactly what I'm telling you. You can actually change your thoughts. You can learn to stop the thought and replace the thought. You can even learn to quiet the thought so you have minimal to no thought, which is why I was talking about being in the present moment now, because we can invite in moments of stillness, and that will really stop all the constant thoughts, because we'll learn to be in the moment and learn to be able to slow things down and quiet our mind. So when I want to talk about replacing negative thoughts, I really want to talk about understanding that you are in the driver's seat and you can choose what you're thinking. And what happens very often is that we're addicted to thinking. And so thinking is just naturally occurring for us. We're not always sitting there going, I'm going to think now. What do I want to think about? Right? So when you are in the moment, as we talked about in step one, and you come back to the here and now, and then you can start to get clear on what you're telling yourself. So for example, some of the things that I tell myself that I'm worried about is maybe like, I'm just trying to think about it off the top of my head, but like sometimes I'll be worried about maybe saying the wrong thing and then, that creating a problem, or I being too much for people, being intense, and I think that when I can start to see the pattern emerge, then I go, oh, okay. And very often for me, a lot of my patterns are around not feeling good enough or not feeling safe to, be who I am. And that's just old programming. This is old stories, a lot of past life stuff. And those are just old. They're not existent. A lot of the times, not even like from our lives. It's like stories we've learned from people along the way. We go, wait a minute. What problem do I have in this moment? Nothing. Everything is amazing right now. Okay. So why am I worried about that? It's because it's just a fake thought. It's like a fake idea. It's fear. It's not real. Okay. So what would be the opposite of maybe I'm scared, or what if I say the wrong thing? Will I be canceled? Like, okay. So I'll just say, I always speak with integrity, or I speak lovingly, or I know how to communicate in a clear way. Or if you have a thought, so let's say around being good enough, I see a lot of people, they're worried about, I think people can actually relate to the whole like afraid of saying the wrong thing, things like that, but also not being good enough, being a failure. And it's like, okay, so if the thought that you're writing is I'm not good enough, what would be the opposite of that? It would be I am good enough, or I'm learning all the time. Or if I'm thinking I'm a failure, it's like, okay, well then what do we look at the successes? Oh, I'm really good at cooking. I'm a really good friend. I'm really good at running. Like whatever the thing is, start to focus on the opposite of it. So in order to manifest your dream life, you want to learn to replace those thoughts, remembering to come back in the moment and remembering your power to replace those thoughts. And eventually over time, your affirmations and you replacing your thoughts, you will start to believe that. You really, really will. It's really amazing. Because I can have negative thoughts now, like I was telling you earlier, it took me a minute to kind of even think about them. Because when I have them now, I'm very clear that I'm allowing myself to have them, that I can choose something different. I know what to replace it with. And I know that my thoughts are not true. They're just fear. They're just fear of like imaginary scenarios. Our ego's looking out for us and going, ooh, these things could happen, like, yeah, but probably will never. So really look for that. Okay, number 3, in order to master your mindset and manifest your dream life, you want to be responsible for your vibration. And I talked earlier about being responsible for the life that you're living. Number 1, you have to be responsible for your vibration. And I really love talking about this one because this is really, it's like supporting the idea that we just were talking about negative thoughts. this is the thing. When we are responsible for our vibration, we start to see that all of the things that we do are actually adding up to who we are. So, for example, if you're making a lot of, let's say you're eating junk food a lot, like you're going on a junk food bender for a couple of weeks. Well, by the end of week 2 or week 3, or even sooner than that, you're going to start feeling really lethargic. You're not going to feel yourself. Your digestion is going to be off. You're not going to be feeling maybe as vibrant and good as you could. Your skin might be affected, right? And it's because you've been making these decisions, and then these decisions have reactions. And that's just the truth of that. And so when we remember that we're responsible for our vibration includes anything that we're inviting into our life. It includes anything like the movies that we're watching, the music that we're listening to, the food that we're eating, the people that we're spending our time with. And a lot of the time, these things come with their own stories, their own ideas. I remember one time a few years ago, I was listening to a lot of Gary Vee, and if you're not familiar with his work, he's a businessman, entrepreneur, and he's really like motivational, and he's fantastic. I love listening to his content. The thing though is that Gary Vee says the F word a lot. And I remember when I was listening to him, this is back in probably 2020 or 2021, and I was listening to a lot of his keynotes, and I was like, wow, this stuff is awesome. Now, the thing about Gary Vee is that he swears a lot. He says the F word a lot. And all of a sudden, I noticed myself saying the F word a lot, more than usual. And I was going, why am I swearing so much? It just feels like I need to drop the F bomb all the time. It just feels comfortable to me. And it's because I was listening so much to his content that I was starting to go, oh, okay, right. Because he's affecting my vibration because I'm hanging out with him so much, right? I'm hanging out with him over on YouTube, not in person, but it's having the same effect, the same repercussions. So where in your life are you inviting in things to your life that are affecting you that you're not even aware of, right? I would imagine that if you are somebody who watches a lot of true crime or horror movies or scary movies or whatever, and you're not eating very well, and you may be spending time with people who are negative, and you're listening to sad music, you're probably not going to be that happy, right? And what if you even remove any of like one of those factors? What if you're doing everything right, but then one of the things that you're doing isn't maybe uplifting? You still might be affected by that. But what if you're somebody who's eating well, eating healthy, hanging out with really high vibration people who are happy, people who are loving and positive, and you're watching funny movies and you're listening to uplifting music? I bet you'd be feeling really good. So it's starting to look at, where are you letting yourself down? And I know a lot of people like horror movies and scary movies and true crime and things like that. And I'm using true crime because I feel like that's a really hot topic. I feel that whenever I go on my different streaming providers, there's so much true crime there. And I'm always like, skip. I don't want to see any of this, skip, because I don't want that stuff in my mind. I don't want to have to undo that, And also, just on a side note, this is like a little tip that I'm being told to tell you. So let's pretend someone tells you something or you see something. I was watching a movie the other day and there was like a scary scene in it. And it wasn't a scary movie, but, and there's a upsetting scene. And I was like plugging my ears and closing my eyes. And I was saying to my partner, tell me when it's over. Tell me when it's over. And then what I do is I go in my mind, I say, cut, clear, delete, cut, clear, delete. And it's like I'm deleting any reference or any memory of that. I believe Archangel Zadkiel also can come in and help you with memory and help you to delete those things too. So if somebody says something to you or you see something that's really upsetting content, sometimes people do not censor their things on social, and you all of a sudden flip by something that's upsetting. That really frustrates me, by the way. Please, can people just not do a trigger warning? Anyway, I unfollow that right away. Do not like that content. If I see something like that, I go cut, clear, delete. And then I might go, cut my cords or just anything to kind of go delete. And I will just say that over and over and over again until I feel that is gone. Because it sits in there otherwise, right? So yes, so be responsible for your vibration. I remember I was talking to a friend of mine and they were going through a hard time. And then we were talking, and turns out they were listening to super sad music. Well, super sad music is going to affect you in a really major way. I remember I interviewed a really interesting woman on the show named Bianca, and she's a sound healer. And she was saying, Lauren, like, music are affirmations. And we forget that. We forget that the lyrics that we're listening to are actually affirmations. And I went, oh my God, you're right. And so I remember I was listening to this song a little while after that interview, and it was this really cool, deep, like kind of like a techno song. And the lyrics were, I fear I'm falling apart. And remember, I'm sitting there going, oh, I feel I'm falling apart. And I went, oh, what? Like you could see my brain going, what? I don't want to, I'm not falling apart. Right. So I changed the lyrics. There's another song by Stormzy, and it's about Blinded by Your Grace, which is an awesome song. And he talks about how he doesn't feel worthy from God, but God's helped him anyway. And he says this part, and it's like, although I'm not worthy, you came and you fixed me. And instead of saying, although I'm not worthy, which are the correct lyrics, I sing, although I am worthy, or yes, I am worthy, or whatever the case, because I don't want to be telling my brain, my subconscious, myself, that I'm not worthy. So starting to look for little things like that you can do in your life to really invite in the kind of life that you want to lead. I mean, if you're binging a show, for example, that's like a really heavy show, it may really start to affect your mindset. So you may need to filter in funny shows with those heavier subjects as well. Okay. I'm not saying don't watch true crime, because personally, I love thrillers and actions and things like that. And they're not always, uplifting either. But I filter into all of that, like a lot of time outside, playing with my dog, listening to uplifting music, watching comedy shows, listening or reading uplifting books, right? So I'm filtering in that content with lighter stuff so that I'm not so bogged down. And if I ever feel that I'm just like feeling not myself, I will not watch that content. Okay, number 4, master your mindset and manifest your dream life. Tip number 4 is prioritize self-care and self-love and come back to your heart. And this is such an important thing to do. If you don't really even remember anything else from our entire time together today, I want you to remember to do this one thing. And that is to just look for ways of loving yourself more and treating yourself better. And it's not easy all the time to do. I know that. But you are doing the best that you can. And sometimes you forget that. One of the things that I like to always remind people is there is nothing wrong with you and nothing that needs fixing. You are operating at the level that you are at right now. And that's perfect. That's where you need to be. And sometimes if we're doing something different or we're acting in a way we wish we hadn't, or whatever the case, whatever the story is, learn from it, forgive yourself, and move forward. When we put ourselves down and shame ourselves and don't back ourselves, we really start to get into a little bit of a negative rut. And over time, I think we just kind of like dig us into a bigger and bigger hole. And then trying to climb out of that is hard because we don't know how to show up for ourselves better. And so one of the things that you can do to really look at being more compassionate with yourself is going to be going back to number 2, which is about replacing those negative thoughts, looking at those stories that you're telling yourself. But it's also just coming back and to your own heartbeat for a moment and just being here and like feeling the love that you have for yourself in that way. And believe me, there was a time in my life when I could never say I love myself. That took years for me to get to, right? Now I can say it. I can give myself a hug. I love you, Lauren, But when I was younger, there was no way in hell I could even pretend that. I had to really start with, I like myself, I'm a good person, and then work my way up. So I learned this great technique from Stuart Wilde, my man. And so what you do is you take, your hand, whichever one, doesn't matter, and you close your eyes, If you're driving, don't do this. And just put your hands on your neck, and I want you to feel your heartbeat for a moment. Let's just do this together. Let's just feel our heart beating. And that's your heart. And it's beating for you and it's keeping you alive. And we forget to connect with that part of us. We forget to come back to the moment, to be in our own body, and to feel our heart beating. And like so many people are not living their authentic life. They are not. They are not listening to themselves. They are not connected with who they are. They don't know how to make decisions. They don't know. I'm not talking about small, stupid decisions. I'm talking about like the big stuff. I'm talking about the life changing kind of things, like the intuition stuff where we're going, oh, I really don't feel like I want to do that thing, but then you do it anyway, like big stuff. And we're forgetting that when we can come back to our heart and get to know ourselves like a friend and then grow in love for ourselves and start to love ourselves like a sister or a brother, then we love ourselves and then we grow into that even more and more and more and more. And when we are connected with our heart and we are listening to our own inner guidance and we are honoring our feelings and we are being who we are authentically, what happens then? Then we manifest the life we want. Then shit just starts to happen in a good way. When we start to go, oh, wow, everything's like working out because all of a sudden I'm listening to myself. I'm not getting in my own way. I'm honoring my own truth and my own story. And so, if anything, I want you to remember this. You are doing the best you can. There is nothing wrong with you and nothing that needs fixing. Nothing. And when you screw up, you haven't. And when you screw up, you haven't. Okay? I get that. And your guides and your angels and your higher self love, 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 love you and are here supporting you and encouraging you. My guides jumping the gun here. Which is going to take us into the next step, which is step number 5, which is asking for help. So in order for you to master your mindset and manifest your dream life, you need to ask for help. We were not born alone. We were born, and we were going to go to bed on our own and all that. I get it. We wake up and go to bed with ourselves every day, but we were not born alone. We have families, friends, but we also have on the other side a whole team of people wanting to help us and support us, of people and energy. Now, I've been reading this book. It's called The Light Shall Set You Free. This book is like, I'm going to do some bibliomancy from this book at the end of this, and it is a wow book. You must get it, okay? It's with Dr. Norma Milanovic and Dr. Shirley McCune. Anyway, they talk in this book all about how we have to learn to connect with our higher self. They talk about the idea of the ego shielding our soul from the higher self, getting in our own way. And I think that we do that a lot by making us into a victim, feeling scared, worried, our thoughts. We make decisions that aren't supporting who we want to be, going back to all of the tips that I've already covered today. And when we can remember that we've got like this higher self, this higher version of ourselves that is almost our biggest cheerleader, but wanting to bring us this life that we desire, when we can learn to ask for help, we open up to that guidance more. Because we have free will, we have to put the intention out there to attract the guidance and the information. And we do that by putting it out there that we're open to it, that we're ready to it. The universe wants you to know that you're willing and ready to meet them halfway. And some of that is about surrendering, right? And one of the things that I learned, and I'm not sure if you've heard me talk about it before, but I learned that relax is a synonym of surrender. And that really helped me figure it out, because as somebody who likes to control things, surrendering is not natural for me, really. It's not easy. I tend to be someone who, wants to control things. Okay. And I heard one of my guys say, "You don't say." Yes, I know. And so when we look at surrender and we go, what's a synonym of surrender? It's relax. Then we can go, okay. And a big part about what we do is we don't ask for help. We don't ask for guidance. We're not open to it because we're concerned on some level that it's not going to be done the way that we want. But this is the thing. If you can only see 5 steps ahead of you, and your guides and your higher self and the high frequency energies working with you and supporting you can see 25,000 steps ahead of you, how do you know that what you want is actually going to be for the highest good for you and all concerned? So one thing that I like to do, and when I'm teaching people about manifesting, creating the life they want, stepping into your future now and things like that, I always say, okay, put out your intention for something and then go this or something better. That allows you to take that step back and go, you know what? I really am feeling this right here. I'm feeling this car. I'm feeling this vibe right now. But if you got something better for me, show me with ease and grace and joy. I always like to use disclaimers like that, ease and grace and joy, because I think ease, yeah, grace, hello. And then joy is a no-brainer, right? How fun. So that's what I like to do because I want my guides, my team to know, okay, listen, I'm looking for this. This is what I'm after. If it's for the highest good of all concerned, and then show me, this or something better with ease and grace and joy. And so that's one of the things that I do. But the fact of the matter is this, is that you are not alone and you need to ask for help so you don't have to do it on your own. I see all of these people and they're carrying these heavy burdens and they're turning to other options, like to kind of subside their pain. And they're not things that are helpful, working a lot or alcohol or maybe just like not taking care of their body. Whatever the case would be, everyone has their own little story, but there are things that we can do to alleviate that stress, to alleviate the problem. And sometimes all we have to do is just say, I need some help, please. You don't have to get down on your knees and pray and beg. You can literally just go, yes, right now in your mind. And that's giving permission. And then you have to invite that in all the time, right? Invite that in, that high vibe help. So one of the things I want to leave you with here is that you are in the driver's seat of your life. And when you can remember to come back to the moment that you have an ability to change your thoughts, that you're responsible for the vibration that you're putting out there in the world, and the vibration that's affecting you, all the things that are affecting you, like everything is a little recipe, you're adding to the recipe of who you are, that coming back to your heart and honoring yourself and then asking for help, you will start to see change, start to see results, start to step into your future life and create this life that you want. And the fact of the matter is this, is that you are worthy of that. You are worthy of living an extraordinary life. You're worthy of being the change you want to see in the world. You are worthy of that. And the world needs to hear from you. There are people who are going through adversity and challenges, and they want to hear how you overcame it. What's your story? People want to hear you. You are safe to speak your mind. You are safe to be here in the now moment, especially now. A lot of these ideas, especially me as a medium, sometimes it's like, people get freaked out by that. But there's a lot more acceptance nowadays. And so it's just giving yourself permission. I get that. And my team's talking about also just being kind to yourself and giving yourself a break. And if you think you get it wrong, you don't. Just learn. Just do better next time. It's not the end of the world, Are you going to worry about this in 5 years? You're going to be worried about this when you do your death review or like your life, not your death review, your life review, at the end. Is this really going to make a big deal? Is this a really big deal what you're worrying about right now? You're missing out on life when you're not in the here and the now, when you're not showing up for yourself. Okay. So I've got a couple questions that have come through that I would like to answer. I also want to do a little bit of bibliomancy before we wrap here. I've got this question here that I love. It says, how can I set healthier boundaries without feeling guilty? And this is such a good question. I think one of the things that we want to do is we want to start slow. And we need to remember that when we are saying yes to things we don't want to do, we're saying yes to someone else and we're saying no to ourselves. And so we've all been in situations like that where we've said yes to things that we didn't want to do. For me, it's mostly always around work commitments, or work situations where I'm like, okay, I'll do that. And I don't want to do it in the end, or I've changed my mind, or something's telling me not to do it. And I say yes. When we are choosing yes, we are choosing someone else and we are not choosing ourselves. And so that's what I want you to start to think about. I want you to start to think about when you are looking at creating healthier boundaries, what are you choosing instead of yourself? So are you saying yes to situations that don't serve you? Are you saying yes to foods that aren't going to make you feel good? Are you saying yes to lifestyle choices that aren't making you feel good and are not supporting you? You're saying yes to those things and no to you. And so guilt is like, I think it's almost a fake thought, because it's these stories that we're telling ourselves like, oh, people aren't going to love me if I don't do that thing anymore that I always did. Or people aren't going to love me if I'm no longer really into this particular sport or this activity. All my friends are around that. People aren't going to love me. And it's like, you have to choose yourself and you will attract new people. You attract new situations that are in alignment with you, that are at the vibration that you're operating at. But the fact of the matter is this: if you are not choosing you, you are choosing someone else. And if you're choosing someone else, you're neglecting you. And then that's where we get in the whole, like, digging a deep hole of getting lost onto who we are and what we want for ourselves. So to answer your question, how can I set healthier boundaries without feeling guilty? Go slow, start to acknowledge and notice where you are not setting these boundaries, and then start to practice them. If you need to learn to practice saying no, start to say no in easy situations, such as someone says, do you want to go with me to the bike for a bike ride? And you don't. You just say, no, thanks, I'm good. That's really a casual way of doing it. The more that you learn to practice saying no, the easier it will be for you. And you'll be able to say it a lot quicker in situations where you really want to, say no. Okay, let me see if I've got another question or two here. What are some common blocks when it comes to manifesting money? One of the common blocks is really along the lines of how we focus on what we don't have. And so we're not focusing on what we do have. And then when we put out the energy and the vibration of what we don't have, then all of a sudden the universe is hearing what you don't have. The other thing too, when people want to attract more money, they really sometimes need to look at themselves and go, am I really showing up like that now? So for example, I remember I did a talk on this a little while ago where, we were talking about attracting clients and running your business and stuff like that. And I was sharing the story of how I built Master Your Mindset, which is my challenge, as you know. Hopefully you've already taken it because it's awesome. And I like put out this ad, I launch it, and I put out this ad, and I go, okay, I'm ready, universe, for all the people to come, And I think it was like a couple days, and I sold one, and I went, yes, validation, and then crickets. And my ad's running, and I'm like, what's going on here? This is like such a tight program, and I felt very aligned, and I know it's like working, and then I realized, oh, wait a minute, there were a couple of tech things that were not right that needed to be fixed. And so it's a long-winded way of me saying that sometimes our blocks when we're attracting money or attracting things in our life is that we actually haven't set up the foundation to be able to, kind of attract that. So some people, what they want to do in their business is they want to scale, and they've got all these plans to attract this amount of money, but their business isn't actually set up to scale because maybe they do one-to-one, or maybe they don't have a team and they don't have any plan to have a team, or they haven't built, any kind of automation to assist them with like getting people in through the front, whatever the case may be, they're just not ready. So I want you to kind of start to look at that. The other thing too is starting to show up like the person that you want to now by acknowledging, being grateful, acknowledging all the good that you have in your life. I found the other day like 10-cent coin outside my car door, and I was over the moon pumped. I was so pumped about finding 10 cents randomly on my lawn. that I just knew. I was like, yes, more, more, more. Thank you, thank you, thank you, more, please. And it's like starting to focus on all of that. The other thing that I really like the idea of as well is looking at where you are manifesting money in your life. And that starts with also saving money. So, for example, I was looking online for a hair product that I want to get. And I thought, oh, I need to get some more of this shampoo, blah, blah, blah. And I'm looking online where I can buy it. And I see that my local grocery store has it half off. And I thought, yes, so I'm going to buy it later today. I'm going to get half off. And so that's me saving, $7.50 or whatever the case may be. And then so when you look at that and you go, cool, and you start to notice all of the money that you actually have, that starts to help you to attract more and more money and getting out of your own way. Just seeing, there's a couple more questions here. How do I avoid burnout when I'm making my business? How do I avoid? Okay, so how do I avoid burnout while pursuing my business goals? Okay, so if you are wanting to avoid burnout while you're pursuing it's just like number one, I love teaching productivity. So this is something I can really connect to. It's making sure that you're taking care of the foundations, that you're eating well, that you're exercising, that you're sleeping enough, looking at how you can focus on the most important task at hand, looking for things to automate in your business, looking for things to delegate, not taking on too much, not trying to run before you walk, doing things in a really systematic way, making sure that you're not wanting to do everything all at once, doing things in a really logical, systematic way. I think that people, they get burned out when they're pursuing business or they're, trying to achieve all these goals is because they're wanting to do too many things. And that's where the problems come in, because they're trying to do so many things that they're not necessarily doing them all well. And then they're not taking care of themselves on the other end, which is the eating well, sleeping enough, hanging with good people, listening to high vibe stuff. So, a lot of the things that we were talking about earlier. So in order for you to avoid burnout, number one, also starting to notice what burnout looks like for you. So what are your symptoms? What are ways that you burn out? What's caused burnout in the past? And then starting to look for that and then look for ways of avoiding that from happening. So if you know that very often, you're burnt out because you are working really long hours every single day, maybe can you take a couple of half days? Maybe can you cut off early or get off early, on 1 or 2 or 3 days a week instead of working super late? Everything you're doing, is it like relevant? Is it important? Okay, so thanks for that question. That was a goodie. Okay, cool. So I'm going to do a little bit of bibliomancy and then we will wrap the show here. And this is the Light Shall Set You Free, which is my amazing book. And it's full of highlighting and writing. And I always, at the end of my books, I always put like notes of like different things that I want to go back to. And anyway, I'm going to be rereading this book again very soon. There's a couple other ones I want to listen to or read in the interim. Okay, so what I want you to do is think your question or just be open to what Spirit has to say. And bibliomancy, you can literally run your, like just open up to any random page and then use a paragraph like with your hand, or you can just choose. So this book is like page 1 to 380. I'm going to go with page 267. We're going to go with paragraph 1, the first paragraph. So let's see what happens. It's just random. Okay, this is cool. Okay, so this is part of a chart that's in here. And this chart is, I'll just tell you the title. So it's Sub-Laws of the Universe and the Behaviors and Attitudes that Diminish and Sustain Them. So for example, when we look at page 267 in the first, in this case, it's a column, but the first paragraph. So this is basically if you want more joy in your life. And then the definition is joy, the expression of feeling much delight, glad feelings and happiness. And then it says purpose, the state of mind that assists us to see the perfection and beauty of God's plan in every waking moment. And then I'll just read a little bit more to give you some context. So it says, behaviors and attitudes governed by the ego, which are very often stopping us from experiencing joy. They are creating hardships, misery and heartaches, discounting others' happiness and delight. Also, it says worrying that life is not perfect, belief that hard times are necessary and that we need to be punished, and belief that life is serious. And so when we are wanting to express joy or have more joy in our life, sometimes the ego interferes in those ways. And the feelings that the ego often brings in, which are affecting us from feeling joy, include gloom, despair, unhappiness, misfortune, sorrow, and inadequacy. And lucky for you and me, we already know what to do to avoid all that, right? We went through it today in the show. This also talks about a technique with aligning with the higher self. So remember, everything happens for a reason, and take challenges as opportunities for growth. Meditate on lessons that need to be learned. Pray for strength and guidance to stay in touch with the happiness within, and release all fears and worries. Ask God to handle all the problems that seem insurmountable. And so if you want to invite in more joy into your life, here are the affirmations that you could use. I surrender to the higher self. Show me the way to happiness and joy. I now see perfection in all things. And I now embrace happiness and delight in the world around me. So I hope you enjoyed that. Thank you so much for being on the show today. And I will talk to you again very soon.